We are live now. Anshu ma'am, you may start.
Okay, okay, sir. Good evening, everyone. I, Anshu Raval, Assistant Professor, Vatel Hotel and Tourism Business School, Sushant University, welcome you all to our fifth workshop of our workshop series, Hospitality and Tourism Interface, Traveler Sentiments during COVID-19 era. Topic for today is the future of revenge tourism in tourism, an optimistic and realistic approach. As we all know that tourism is expected to grow gradually as we move into the new normal from a nationwide lockdown that kept families indoors. After this experience, everyone would need to relax and regenerate themselves, which is why families are already working on a wish list of where they would like to travel. In fact, this could be almost a thought of as revenge tourism, which refers to an overindulgence in travel therapy. This desire for leisure holidays to seek serenity will spike in India, not only in India, in fact, but globally as people emerge from quarantine. And this will create a essence that they want to travel, and people would be preparing their own list to travel. So taking this thought forward, and we have invited an expert on revenge tourism. He would will be going through the session, and I hope we'll be having a better idea about revenge tourism and how globally it is affecting the travel and tourism industry. Now, I may present you all the speaker for today, Ms. Vijay Shoganathan, Head of APAC, OK.com. About Ms. Vijesh, she is a professional with over 10 years in the hospitality industry. Vijesh has helped hotels maximize their direct and online booking revenues using advanced digital marketing and distribution strategies across Asia Pacific. As head of APAC at Oki, she now leads the expansion of Oki in the APAC region, spearheading sales, customer success, partnerships, and all other key activities for the region. Oki has been ranked number one on Hotel Tech Report for upselling. She is an alumnus of the University of Hull and University of Hertfordshire, England. She has already served at positions like Director of Sales Asia OK.com, Director of Sales Asia Revenate, Director of E-commerce and Online Marketing TravelClick. Now over to you, ma'am. We all welcome you on this platform. Thank you for coming here, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. It's really nice to be here and speak to all of you today. Oki, based out of Amsterdam, and as mentioned, ranked number one on Hotel Tech Report for the last 3 years running, is an easy-to-use upselling tool which helps hotels actively drive revenue pre-arrival via email. When I say upselling, we're referring to room upgrades and ancillary services like breakfast, early check-in, late check-out, airport transfers, and much more, specifically for hotels and resorts. Radisson and Taj, for example, are some of our largest customers in India. My name is Vijesh. I'm the head of Asia Pacific for Oki. I'm based out of our regional office in Singapore. I'm born and raised in Singapore. I have visited India and I've had some amazing experiences. I can't wait to start traveling again myself. I'm very pleased today to be invited by the Vatel Hotel and Tourism Business School to speak on this topic of revenge traveling. What we'll do is we will start off by talking about the concept, what's revenge traveling, how it was coined, and then we're also going to talk about how we can prepare for this surge of revenge traveling. And that's going to cover ideas and things that people can do across the board in travel and tourism, whether you're a hotel, whether you're a tour attraction, whether it's flights, restaurants, local businesses, and it's applicable to everyone. Now, before we start, I'm going to start with talking about the domino effect that COVID-19 has had across industry globally, and none more so have been impacted by it than travel, of course. Domino effect refers to a single event or action that sets off a chain reaction, a whole series of events that result as directly because of this initial reaction, right? So let's look at the impact of this in travel space. Due to COVID, countries had to implement lockdowns. This was initially to stop the import of the virus from other nations, but eventually the lockdowns had to be between cities itself to curb the spread of the virus within each country itself. Now, of course, because of the lockdowns, there have been almost no passenger flights, no cruises, which means thousands of airports and ports have been affected globally, millions of jobs at risk. No flights and no cruises and shutting down of local borders resulted in no travel. Without travel, one of the biggest impacts is that income is no longer distributed to local communities because many of the locally produced goods are no longer consumed. And all businesses that cater to travelers are also no longer supported. This includes hotels, tourist attractions, restaurants, and bars, but also think about the many local small business owners and even craftsmen, right? And locally produced goods which are no longer being supported or consumed. According to the World Travel and Tourism Council, travel creates 1 in 10 jobs globally, and 75 million of those jobs are now at risk. But on a more optimistic note, let's now start talking about what is revenge traveling and why are we so optimistic about the future of travel and tourism? Well, the term was first mentioned in an article by McKinsey and Company. It's titled The Way Back When, What the World Can Learn from China's Restart After COVID-19. Now, this entire paper, this article, is actually based on the result of surveys, which indicate that due to the deep disappointment that travelers faced because they had to cancel their trips, and it was completely out of everyone's control, right? It was directly as a result of this new virus. It was completely unexpected. So because of the disappointment that travelers have faced, and because everyone has initially been restricted to the lockdowns, and then now restricted mostly to domestic travel, the perception moving forward is that we can definitely expect a wave of revenge traveling with certainty. So when current conditions improve, though. So revenge traveling basically refers to people going on extra trips and indulging, whether it's just a short weekend getaway or a trip of a lifetime, to make up for all the travel that they haven't been able to do so far this year. Now, I did mention that there were surveys to support the article by McKinsey and Company. So what were these surveys I was referring to? We can have a quick look at them as well for anyone who hasn't heard of them yet. First, we have Fliggy, which is actually Alibaba's online travel platform. They asked people who canceled their trips because of COVID-19. So they were tracking the reasons, and then specifically if it was because of COVID, they were asked if they would consider rebooking those specific trips. Fliggy, of course, only reflects this trend within China, but 55%, which is quite a great volume of the travelers, responded saying yes, they will definitely consider rebooking once the condition improves. Next was Fuel Travel. So Fuel Travel is a US-based hotel software provider and hotel marketing agency. So they surveyed over about 10,500 participants, and they found out that 59%, so more than half, said that they definitely want to rebook their travel in 2020. 14% said that they will rebook travel, but they are looking at 2021 instead. And only 3% said that they're just going to stay at home altogether. So that's actually really good indication for travel and tourism that things are definitely bound to improve, and it's going to get better. So what can we do as an industry to prepare for the surge of revenge travel? And this, of course, applies across all businesses that caters to travelers, whether it's an airline, hotels, F&B outlets, tourist attractions, all of them. So all of us, are in the same space. And what should we do? What can we do that's going to help elevate your business, drive more revenue? How can you benefit from this trend of revenge travel? Well, to begin with, travelers are going to be far more concerned about their health and safety across the board than they've ever been before. So work proactively to share with them whatever is already being done to keep them safe. It's really important that businesses, share this, whether it's on their website or their confirmation emails. They should be sharing about disinfecting rooms, airline seats, or measures that are being taken to implement social distancing within the businesses. And these, of course, are emerging trends as a result of COVID, right? So social distancing is cited to become the new normal. And make sure it's on the brand website, but also make sure that it's included in any kind of booking confirmation or pre-arrival communication. These are all sort of directions that everyone has to start implementing, and they have to be reiterated so that travelers can actually feel safe and to avoid any kind of cancellations closer to the date, or worse yet, no-shows. Everyone hates those. But everyone in the travel industry also has to focus on becoming more flexible. So, with the rise of revenue management, and it has become such an important part of, especially hotels, but airlines also implemented. Because of that, there was this rise of rate fences. So, different buckets of pricing that everyone can use based on whether it's a no cancellation or cancellation X days before travel and so on. But now we have to become far more flexible. This is because a lot of travelers have faced a bunch of issues with cancellations and not being able to get refunds at the beginning of all of this around March this year. And it wasn't really their fault. But sadly, airlines and some major hotel brands, they made this a very challenging process for the actual consumer. So they couldn't get refunds, they were given credits instead. Now, the situation has gone on for a little longer than we all expected it to. So what's happening is that now they still can't use up the credit. They probably won't be able to within the 12 months. So they're going to have to email the brand, whether it's an airline or a hotel, and ask them for longer extensions. And this is starting to scare off a lot of consumers. So there are people like, as a result of the Fuel Travel Survey, there are people who say, I'll wait to travel in 2021. So that's not just because of the virus, but also with these cancellation policies and issues like that. So offering flexibility and making it clear to travelers that you're going to be accommodating of any cancellations due to conditions that are out of their control. Just like how online travel agents like Booking.com and Expedia have been doing it. They've been very good at it and making sure that their customers' needs are taken care of. So following that style is really going to help anyone in the travel sector. And COVID has also given the rise to this demand of contactless technology. Travelers no longer want to queue up or wait in crowded hotel lobbies or information counters. So companies that are looking into contactless technology to communicate with their guests before arrival, whether it's pre-arrival upselling systems like ours, where you can email the guests and share a lot more information about your product, whether you're a hotel or a tourist attraction. You can give them the information that customers can read by email in their own privacy at their own convenience. And then they can choose to add these services on to enhance the experience while they're at the hotel or the location. Other contactless technology also includes self-check-in kiosks or an app. So when they turn up, they don't have to actually queue up to get a physical ticket, for example, or at a hotel, they can just get the room key and then scan it. As long as there's no need to wait around, and we help them address social distancing, this has actually become kind of an opportunity from current conditions if you look at it. So companies that start looking into and applying contactless technology now, they're going to come out ahead during the surge of revenge travel. Another opportunity that has presented itself is the clear opportunity to actually leverage services that are built around health and safety concerns. So the suggestions on screen are more catered to hotels and resorts, which is the area we're in, but you'll also see the general idea as I go on. So if you look at the preference for contactless technology, hotels can offer room upgrades, early check-in before even the guest arrives via email. So again, no need to stand around, ask questions about this, no need to be in crowds. You can also address health and safety concerns by doing things like offering masks and sanitizers. I went to a restaurant recently and along with the normal plating, there was a plastic bag on the table and I was trying to figure out why is there plastic? And I realized they'd actually taken the time to consider that you might want a hygienic place to put your mask in because in Singapore, everyone still has to wear a mask when you're going out. So little gestures like this become really great and helpful. But you can also offer private sanitized transfers. And these things can be done at a bit of a premium, that customers are willing to pay for businesses to leverage. And keeping social distancing in mind, if you're a hotel and you can't offer buffet breakfast anymore, this is quite a key concern for the industry because you either won't be able to offer buffet breakfast at all, or you might have to offer it for reduced seating. So it's going to depend on your government regulations. In India, for example, when you do open up from the lockdown. So if you can't do buffets, no problem. Offer alternates like a in-room breakfast menu or maybe premium seating at a restaurant. Premium seating can come in with, a better view. It could have, more privacy. But inherently, services like this would actually address social distancing as well. And this is the kind of trust that you want to reinforce to your customer. And for hotels, there are a whole slew of other services that they can also offer because, of course, you have the privacy of the guest rooms, right? So you can offer, in-room services from facials to champagne and chocolates for some romance, or popcorn and soda for families, so that you encourage staycation, which is basically domestic travel into your hotels. So they take a vacation locally in the country. And yeah, so sodas and popcorn in the room, so families will actually come and stay at the hotel and then maybe just stay in and Netflix, so they don't have to go around until there's a vaccine. And these ideas tie in with the next point, which is about paying attention to value and amazing experiences for customer. Everyone is experiencing more stress due to current conditions. Working from home might have sounded relaxing all this time, but now that we've given the opportunities, we do see that it's longer hours. For some people, it's dealing with kids at home while they're trying to work as well. Of course, jobs have also been at risk. There have been some people who've unfortunately been laid off. Frontline workers are also constantly under added pressure. And travelers are generally tired of staying at home and restricted from overseas travel, right? So it's very important to make sure that you have a really clear value proposition. You need to define yourself to stand out from your competition. So things like offering wholesome wellness packages, for example, or encouraging self-care and some indulgence for your customers with luxury travel experiences, making sure to highlight the specific value of your services. That's what's going to really help you stand out from the crowd and stand out from your competition. Now, another area, of course, that becomes critical right now is the concept of incremental revenue. So when your demand is really low, driving additional guest spend from every single guest, every single dollar that can be driven, is really going to help businesses. So it's important for them to get themselves and the teams ready to start being able to do this very effectively. And this works best when the upsell is segmented and personalized. So it's really important to identify what your different customer profiles look like. And that's something that businesses have to start doing more proactively. For example, solo travelers versus couples versus families. They all have very different needs and wants. So it's important to get creative. Think of what else you can try and upsell to them. And upselling as well, this concept of upselling, it's not something that has to only be done pre-arrival via emails. There are actually 6 stages to the customer journey with your business. This starts, or with any business, this starts all the way from the time they start dreaming about a vacation or visiting an attraction, and all the way through the check-in process, and then staying at the hotel or enjoying the services at a restaurant or an attraction, and all the way till they have enjoyed themselves and actually check out and leave. At which time you should still communicate with them so that they start thinking about coming back or write a great review for you as well. So you have the opportunity to upsell to your customers at 5 stages, at 5 of these 6 stages. So think about all the different partners that businesses can work with to reach and communicate with all of their guests, and then to try and drive that incremental revenue. So for example, at the point of reservation itself, whether it's booking a table at a restaurant or a hotel room or buying a flight, at that point of booking, what can be done on the booking engine to sell some additional little pieces that's going to help drive that revenue? What about other channels as well, like a chatbot on your website? If someone's already made a purchase and then returns to the business's website, is there a way that you can partner to find out whether they already have a reservation and then offer them something more to really excite them for the stay? What can you do at the point of check-in or when the guest is collecting their ticket, for example? Mobile communication is usually proven to work at this point because they're already there. So, imagine a customer at Disneyland, right? So if they're there and then they get a text message that tells them that there's a great offer at one of the restaurants, they have to eat. So that then adds to that experience instead of just, being intrusive and selling things to them. A simple discount code or a coupon can also go really far to get a customer to come back. So these are definitely opportunities that should be leveraged, especially right now. So if you give 20% off to a customer to come back and experience your service within the next 12 months and to book directly through the company's website, for example, let them feel free to share it even with a friend, because word of mouth is a very effective technique to really build the branding for your business. The 10 to 20% offered is something that is usually a lot less than the cost of distribution via other channels. So whether it's working with an online travel agent or different channels of distribution and partners, there is a cost involved for hotels, for airlines, for all of these businesses. And usually offering a small discount to book directly with you on your own website is a very cost-effective way of doing that. And finally, one of the bigger things that I wanted to talk about is about working on your plans right now and start marketing early. Because right now there's a bit of downtime, so all businesses have the opportunity to really sit down and start planning ahead. You have to have a clear plan on how to attract your customers when demand returns. And this should cover everything from the value proposition of the business to their ideal customer profile in current conditions. So what is the ideal customer profile? This is the guest that is going to, want to come and experience your offering. This is the guest who's going to really enjoy it the most. And this is the likely customer who is going to go and write great reviews for you that's going to send you more business as well. And this may have changed from before. So as mentioned, some travelers, some consumers, they've been affected by the current conditions. So maybe they can't really leverage or afford the experiences they could before. So it's really good to figure out where your brand is, where your positioning is, and who your new customers might be, and then build your services around that. And pay really close attention to the channels that you'll be using. So it's very important to focus on channels that are going to drive a higher return on investment, because conversions are a lot more important right now than just pure visibility. So that's really important, because focusing on pure visibility is of course a lot more expensive as well. But also look for tools that are going to allow the business to be more fluid. Because one of the things with the current condition is that it's been changing very quickly. So if you think about countries or cities like Melbourne, for example, or even Korea and China saw this as well, they opened up, they had lockdowns much earlier on, then they opened up because they were doing better, and they've all seen a second wave. So it's important to be able to be fluid as, the situation kind of evolves. So find tools that would allow the business to be adaptable to changes as the situation evolves and changes. And finally, be creative. This is definitely the time for any business to leverage all of their strengths. So you may be a hotel, but if you have a restaurant, is this time to start distributing food through any delivery app? So like Grab Food is really popular in Singapore. Traditionally, you only see, restaurants listed on them, but hotels have restaurants as well. So what about partnering there so you can still drive some F&B revenue during this time when hotels are closed? If you have a great bar, What about making pick and go or make it yourself cocktails? So we've seen a rise in this, a little bit more in some of the Western countries as well, where they also sell pick and go or make it yourself food items. So they'll actually just send you the ingredients and you cook yourself. So these are some of the things that can be explored. It's not a normal business product, but you can create it and start selling that. And if you are a tourist attraction, could you include private pickup? So this is something that normally, attraction like the flyer or whether it's the charge, they wouldn't do. But now that's something that can be considered because health and safety, again, are some of your key concerns. So really think out of the box and looking at other areas that a business can branch into and partner with is really gonna be what will help them be ready to prepare and really drive revenue and leverage this whole surge of revenge traveling that's going to happen. So that actually kind of brings me to the end of what I wanted to talk about with revenge traveling. So the following is a summary of basically what we've discussed so far on how to prepare for the surge of revenge travel that we really remain optimistic about. Health and safety, definitely a key concern. So there is a need to address that to proactively gain travelers' trust. Remember to create opportunities, and that's what businesses are really going to benefit for by leveraging on services built around this health and safety concept and to drive additional revenue from them. Also, there's a need to pay attention to value and amazing experiences. With revenge traveling, as the concept itself means, people are going to want to overindulge. They're going to be really want to make up for the time that they've spent in 2020 being trapped at home so far. So really make sure that you try and build that value by creating amazing experiences. So look out for ways to really wow them. Also, there's a need to focus on the average spend per guest. So incremental revenue becomes really, really important at a point of time like this. And there's a need to start marketing early because restrictions are also changing at different times and at different speeds. So it's really important to know which are the right markets that are open, that are going to be able to travel into your city, for example, and how you can then communicate with them and have great experiences waiting for them that they'll and of course to reiterate the fact that they'll be safe with you. And in all of this, one of the trends that we've already seen and we've started seeing from our data, two things that I can share and highlight is that to begin with revenge traveling, resorts are definitely benefiting a lot more than city hotels because it really does seem that when people want a holiday or a vacation, they really want to go to the beaches and enjoy themselves. And we've seen this in Europe now very strongly during summer vacation, but we've also seen that in markets within Southeast Asia. So in Thailand, for example, it's all of our customers in Phuket, in Samui that have started seeing a lot more business. Even in Malaysia, it's the resort destinations like Penang. Some of it tends to be clustered around weekends, but it is quite a huge surge from before like March this year. So resorts are definitely already benefiting from this revenge travel. And another thing we've seen specific to upselling, which was kind of interesting, is that the amount that a customer actually spends, a guest spends at a hotel right now with lower demand is actually the same or even slightly more than the exact value that they were spending pre-COVID. So looking at Australia, for example, where we did a data analysis, we found that before COVID, they're spending about 150 Australian dollars, and now they're spending about 168. So that basically shows that as long as the demand starts building up, there's a lot of opportunity to leverage revenge traveling as a strategy to really start, providing these experiences that everyone is just starved and deprived of, and start, really enjoying that. So that actually brings me to the end of my presentation. I know there's going to be a Q&A session. So before we go into that, I did want to share that if you want, more information, we do a lot of knowledge sharing on Oki's LinkedIn page, just on travel trends, different travel technology, as well as effective revenue generation tips. So feel free to follow us there if you'd like to. Um, Now I
Sure, ma'am,
do need
sure.
to, yeah, I need to check with you guys how you'd like to do the Q&A. Should we get everyone
Ma'am,
to
we'll
type it
be
on the chat board?
Ma'am, we'll be asking questions one by one. For example, panelists will be asking the questions, and attendees will be writing the questions in the chat box.
Brilliant. Okay.
So, ma'am, after listening to you, this incremental revenue, taking this, forward.
Anshu, ma'am, just a second. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, could you turn off the sharing option so we could have you on the main screen? As
Sure.
of now, yeah, now it's perfect. Now it's perfect. Yes.
Great.
Actually, ma'am, this incremental revenue, it's a new word for me, so it has attracted me, and this question has come up to my mind. What do you think that every expert in a current situation, they're speaking that offbeat destinations are like to see a boost. The destinations which were very rarely visited by the tourists and travelers. So they are expecting them to be flooded with tourists. So do you think this is a favorable place for suffering, for the places which are suffering from over tourism? Will it create a balance between these offbeat destinations and overcrowded destination? This revenge
Ye-
tourism.
That's a very interesting question. I don't think anyone's asked me that before. But I must say, right, so let me start with the fact this ties in with this whole concept that there's going to be a new norm moving forward. Things are definitely going to change and there's going to be this new normal. But to be honest, it's not really a new norm, right? It's kind of like an interim normal because the only constant in life is change. Change has been happening for a while. We used to communicate in fax machines, then internet, and now it's all the mobile phone. So I personally don't think that it's going to be such a drastic change in terms of the new normal. I do think that because travelers have social distancing and health and safety in their mind, they might look for destinations that, as you said, are not as explored to sort of go slightly further off the beaten track. But I don't think that's going to be like a mass shift. And that's also from what I've shared that we're seeing already. What's happened is that once domestic travel opened up, everyone is, queuing up at the beaches, the same beaches that they used to visit before. So it really does seem to be more a case of what's available and what's open and just enjoying that first. I also keep hearing people say that, as soon as restrictions are lifted, they just want to visit the first country that they can travel to. Because there is this case where you need to match. There is pockets of markets that are opening up because, they have less cases, they've a little bit safer, so they're opening up to international travelers. But then not everyone can start traveling already themselves. So I think that's going to be what we see in phase A, this matching between markets that are open and the travelers that can go in there. So one of the examples I had was Vietnam. Before the last month, they were actually doing really well and had one of the lowest cases ever. And they were very excited about opening up. So they were starting to target China because they were already opening up travel. They were hoping that Australia and New Zealand will open up international travel because those markets had recovered as well. So that was the exact kind of matching. Of course, things have changed now in all these three markets that I just mentioned right now. But I think that's going to be phase one. It's really going to be where I can go, where I'm allowed to travel, more than where I want to go, and even having that opportunity to look for wonderful off the beaten track locations.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am,
Yep, sure.
actually, the article that you mentioned about McKinsey, that they have written an article. There was another article which was stating that this revenge traveling or revenge tourism is directly in proportion with revenge spending, and which is affecting the economy of the nation. So what do you think that this revenge travel, can it be an environmental disaster waiting to happen? What do you think that this revenge traveling can lead up to a major disaster, even bigger than COVID-19 that has happened?
So, I actually have read that article and that challenge or question. I actually, in this case, I'm a little bit more optimistic. And the reason is because before all of this happened, one of the biggest travel trends for 2020 that was cited early this year was that travelers were actually going to care a lot more about the environmental impact of their itinerary. So all trips, especially in markets that were a little bit more mature, who've been traveling for a long time, thanks to all this attention that's been to saying no to plastics, no to straws, I think there's been quite not enough, but a lot more travel and a lot more focus has been put on environmental concerns, right? So it's not just the travelers, even hotels, fortunately, have started looking a lot more into not even using these little in-room amenities anymore. They use larger packs because that's a lot of plastic they were throwing away. They're looking at straws and a lot more environmentally supportive materials to use as well, like bamboo and all that. So packaging, all of that was being looked at. So it's interesting, like that was the trend we predicted for 2020. And then now because of COVID, we're in this position where we say that, oh no, because of revenge travel, it's all going to get worse and, it's going to be a disaster. But I remain a bit optimistic. I think people are still a bit more concerned about the environment. This straw theory, it's something that we face even right now before we start traveling, like domestically when the markets open up, you see more and more restaurants, for example, not even offering plastic cups. So I think that would stay in mind. Having said that, there's that behavior which we're conscious of, and then the unconscious behavior. Just taking a flight itself, just emits so much carbon into the environment. So that could be an unfortunate and unforeseen expense to the environment, because yeah, people are going to want to travel and they would pack lightly and focus a little bit more, but the trip itself is going to add to the carbon emissions. So I guess it's going to have to be a balance. But yeah, on that note of revenge spending, revenge traveling is exactly the same. I think during lockdowns, online retailers, whether it was like Lazada, I know there are different brands in India as well, many brands actually, and Alibaba in China, they all saw like triple, quadruple increase in spending because people were just trapped at home and they were using their money to do online shopping instead. I think that's the same thing. Once the market opens up, they're not going to be spending as much online, but they're going to be spending that on travel instead.
Right, absolutely, ma'am. Ma'am, since we have touched the topics like environment and sustainability, I am really eager to know that what is your company doing to promote sustainability in Singapore? What are your promotional plans, and how do you promote sustainability, your sustainable travel?
That's a great question, and I think that's something that so Oki as an organization, we are a startup. So initially we were of course focused a lot more in the company and the culture. But the great news is that the company is headquartered out of Amsterdam, where cycling is such a big part of the psyche. Everyone is a lot more environmentally conscious, so that kind of comes with the company culture itself. And in Singapore as well, we've adopted that. So we started with really simple things. We don't print things out. No one uses paper. No one needs it anymore. We share documents on Google Drive. There's just so many ways to collaborate without having to print and scribble on paper, right? So we started on things like that. As a company as well, all of our corporate gifts that we prepare for events and roadshows, they are all made out of sustainable materials. We make sure that it's all recyclable. So that's a key focus that we have as well. Of course, there's a lot more we'd want to do, but I think it's baby steps, and we're definitely working towards that. And we're also hoping to try and educate more of our customers in that direction. So as I mentioned with Oki, we focus more on the upselling, right? So we do tell the hotels to share with their customers very actively, even before arrival. What are the sustainability issues they look at? What are the services that they have? What are the causes that they support as well? Because those are things that you can highlight to the customer when they're, reading through their email, getting them to support these causes, maybe even make a donation. So those are all things that we try and do on our platform as well.
Right. Ma'am, now I would like to open the session for questions from the panelists and attendees.
We have a question coming in. How much positive response do you think that the revenge tourism will be getting from Indian tourist market?
That's a great question. Markets do tend to react differently, right? I think in India, I think revenge tourism is something that Indians will support because There are many countries where India is one of the top 5 or top 3 travelers that they have. Like Malaysia, for example, Indians have been, quite excited about traveling to Malaysia for quite some time. Singapore has a strong following of Indian travelers as well, a lot to do with shopping, for example, and many other cities like Dubai. So I do think that would go back to normal as soon as the restrictions are lifted. What I'm a little bit more interested to see actually is the trend of staycations. I'm not really sure whether that's a very big trend within Indians, just checking into a hotel in your own city, whether that's seen as a vacation at all. But I mean, I know that's really big in countries like Singapore, for example. So that's the part, because it would be really great if everyone takes their energy for holidays and starts. That's what has been keeping these businesses up and running in some of the other markets that's opened up. So I'd love to see the effect of, well, staycations more than revenge traveling within the Indian market. I think Mr. Kumohan Singh had a question.
Yes.
You're on mute though.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, sir,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Now, revenge marketing is definitely a good thing for all the industries because they will bounce back. But what I feel is revenge marketing is still not going to be like opening of floodgates. I mean, people will not start rushing out of their houses, and revenge in this case will mean that everybody would like to take his pound of flesh, maybe very, very slowly and gradually. But till the time the travelers really want to travel in big groups and hordes, like they used to, let's say about a year ago, will still take time, I think. What are your views about it?
I have to agree. I think as an industry, we're trying to be really optimistic. We're trying to stay positive because, we're all very passionate about travel, about hotels, about the industry. So we want to see things to recover. So we try and be optimistic. But as the article or this concept of revenge traveling itself actually says, it is when conditions improve. And that's where we're not yet, and that's where we don't know when that's really going to happen. So until then, we of course want to prepare for it. So I think what's more important is trying to see where you can drive that incremental revenue. So that's why when I talk about revenge tourism, I also make sure to tap on incremental revenue, because you have to have strategies in place to drive more business out of that lower demand, because we're definitely going to be facing lower demand when we first start. The new normal isn't going to be the old normal. It's not going to be everyone rushing out immediately. But I do think that it's going to happen in a staged, progressive, and consistent increase. So, it's going to start with those people who just go, you know what, forget it. Like, I'm not even worried. I just want to travel. And then it's going to be the slightly more cautious people who say, okay, those people have traveled and they came back and they seem fine. So now I'm going to, go ahead and do so as well. So it's definitely going to be staggered. And I think it's going to be over the next 2 years. There was an article recently that said that flight and airlines are not going to recover until 2024. So things have been, changing as we go along. It started with it's going to be late 2020, then it was 2021, and then now it's 2024. So I think what's more important is to make sure that you have the right tools, the right systems, and the right strategy in place to remain fluid and adapt as things changes, because it's going to change. It's going to change, it's going to improve, but it's going to take time.
It's going to take time. Yeah, just on a lighter note, in fact, I was talking to my wife this morning. They said, as a revenge, no one should travel to China.
As far as revenge goes, that will be interesting.
That'll be real revenge.
I just would like
Mute,
to
Lorosa? Yeah, it's you back.
unmute. No,
Yeah,
I'm
you're
not
muted now?
muted.
Now
No,
I'm
no.
muted. Yes.
Yeah,
All okay now.
I just wanted to add on what you're saying and Kulmans has been asking. I think it will also depend on the age group. I think the younger crowd will travel first, even if the 100% of the COVID is not, cleared and the coast is not totally clear. I think people, who have gone through this pandemic, the younger crowd, will definitely rush and travel. That I'm pretty sure. And people who are more conservative maybe and want to, see what's going on in the future and maybe save a little money might not travel right away. But I'm sure the millennials and the other generation, younger generation, will travel again. I believe so.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's one of the good things about the youth, right? They're still so keen on their Instagrams, and now thanks to COVID, there are businesses that have benefited, right? Like e-commerce sites and TikTok. TikTok's a big one with the millennials, and they're gonna want to start posting photos and their TikToks as soon as possible. So that's definitely a market. But what's interesting about that market that you just mentioned, and we've seen this is that they really just think of their whole holiday in terms of generating likes. So it's more about what their friends respond to them than the actual experience of the stay. So with that market, we've seen that if they go to a city, they basically try and visit the top Instagrammable sites. So for example, if they go to Bali, they go to that temple with the doors, and then they take their post, and they're done. That's their trip to Bali. And then the rest of the time, they actually stay in the resort or that accommodation, which is great for the resort or accommodation because then they spend more on F&B and they're at the pool and things like that. But not so much for the local businesses. That still depends on, avid travelers who want to explore and understand the local culture and immerse themselves with that. So I think that's why it's going to be staggered after that first wave, where we do need things to return to the normal.
Correct,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
We got a
Absolutely.
question coming in from Ruby Singh, our current batch student, first year student. She's saying like when we talk about revenge tourism, one tends to go for domestic destinations. Would it not be more logical to go towards Europe given the opportunity, since the condition there has more or less stabilized?
See, that's the other thing, right? So with revenge traveling, it still comes back down to your budgets and what you can afford as well. So there's this meme going around that I thought was really funny. It says, this is the first time the first time in my life I haven't been to Hawaii on a vacation because of COVID, because the rest of the time I couldn't go because I couldn't afford it.
Hmm.
So it's like that. I think it might make sense to fly to Europe, but it's not a guarantee that when the markets open, it's going to be like on a 50% discount, right?
Yep.
Because everyone is also looking at their revenue numbers and their figures.
Hmm.
And with airlines, with revenue management, they're very careful to drop rates because then in the future they can't again start charging based on their branding or their service quality. So I think it's really the whole concept of revenge traveling is that people are going to start doing what they can afford or they would have done before COVID, but they're just going to do it a little bit more excessively. So if this is like a young group of friends who had a plan to go to Goa over a weekend, and that's been cancelled, they might go to Goa twice this year instead, or the next time they do go, they might go with more friends or have a longer stay. But that same group isn't going to then, change their plans and go to Spain instead. So I think that's the thing to keep in mind with revenge traveling. Any other questions?
Yes. Any other questions, Sunil sir?
No, ma'am, no more questions are here in the attendees side.
I think
All right, great.
Any other question from the panelist side?
I don't think so. That was a great presentation. Mhm.
Yes, it was a great presentation, and thank you, Vijesh ma'am. Thank you for giving your time, such precious time to us, and explaining these concepts to us. And because this was such a new concept that you have explained it so well that all our students and our faculties also are we enjoyed this session, and actually we have learned it from this session. Thank you so much. Thank you for attending this. Thank you for making us understand what is revenge tourism actually all about. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Well,
Thank you,
thank
ma'am.
you to everyone who's joined this session and definitely to the school for organizing this. And it's definitely been my pleasure. I just wanted to share that if you do want to connect, if you have any questions or just to progressively keep in touch, feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. It's Miss Vijesh on LinkedIn. And at the same time, I would love to wish everyone here the very best on the road to global recovery as we all work towards it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so
ma'am.
much, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, all the students who
Thank
have
you.
attended this workshop, this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.